Okay, cool. So today I am talking about batch cooking. And this little term batch cooking is actually a new term that I've just learned from Ashley Pardo. She's a really amazing nutritionist in the health space, and she helps people learn how to cook. Little did I know, I actually do batch cooking, and that's part of my cooking philosophy. However, I just never had a nice little convenient word to describe it. So today I want to tell you a little bit about what batch cooking is and how it can save you in your meal planning and prevent you from eating really gross meals. So in order for any fat loss program to be effective, we know that it must be sustainable. So if you don't like the food you're eating, then when you're on your diet, once you go off your diet, you're not going to eat that anymore, and we're going to go backwards, right? So if the method is not sustainable, if you can't see yourself eating like this forever, then it's not going to last. And as soon as you decide to stop your diet, then you're just going to go right back. So we have to figure out a way of eating that's good right now, that you like, that you enjoy, that feels good, that you look forward to eating your meals. And not all of us have a ton of time to cook. And one of the big things that I see with cooking is we feel like we need a recipe. I don't know about you, but whenever I cook with recipes, it feels really fiddly and annoying, and it feels like a lot of work to get all these ingredients, make sure you have everything, and then you're like looking back and forth from the recipe to like what you're cooking, and it feels really stressful. That's just my experience with recipes. Maybe you really like using recipes, but I find it's so much easier to cook if I'm just kind of doing my own thing, adding ingredients and making them taste really, really good. For a lot of people, that's super overwhelming because they think I'm not a good cook and I can't make delicious food. I don't know how to. And the best part about this is you only need a couple really easy cooking techniques and a strategy called batch cooking to make really yummy meals that are super healthy and that are really, really easy to track. So if we've in our coaching calls, I'm sure we've talked about your macro counting goals. We've talked about your calories if your goal is fat loss. And when we use recipes or when we use, big, huge, like indulgent meals, it's really hard to track the calories. And so what we need to do is use ingredients that are really easy to track and measure, but make sure they taste really, really good too. So remember, when we are doing macro counting for fat loss, protein is the most important macronutrient because it's our most filling, it's our most satiating, and it actually has a higher thermogenic effect, meaning when you eat protein, it helps you burn more calories later. So the first up, when we talk about batch cooking, is making sure you have plenty of protein that's really, really handy that you can just eat on the fly. So what do I mean by protein? Protein foods are, of course, animal meats are like the most high protein. They have the best amino acid profile. Also, proteins coming from dairy and from eggs. So those also have the full amino acid profile. If you're looking at vegetarian sources of protein, we're looking at things like quinoa, tofu. They have a full amino acid profile. And then other things like beans and rice and grains. However, we have to be really mindful about using those for protein because we need to make sure you have that full amino acid. And when we look at those proteins, they're usually a little bit more high in carbohydrates instead of protein, but as a vegetarian or vegan, we really just have to be aware of how much protein we're getting, so you're probably going to be a little higher on the carbohydrates. So when we come to batch cooking, I love to start off my batch cooking with, okay, what proteins am I going to eat this week? And for me, really easy right off the bat is chicken. I know that's super boring. So when I cook chicken, I always add some sort of delicious seasoning. I also really like chicken thighs because I think they're more moist, and although they have a little bit more fat, they taste better. So what we do is find a really good season that you like. I have a seasoning, it's in a jar, it's called Tuscan seasoning. It's super delicious. I also like Chipotle seasoning, Italian seasoning, everything seasoning. I don't know if you've ever used Flavor God's everything, but have some sort of delicious seasoning. And I usually either just put them on a pan, bake them in a tray, or just fry them up on the grill. So when we think of batch cooking for proteins, I want it to just be plain. And I'm going to make a large amount because basically the proteins are going to be the base of each one of your meals. So I want to have chicken for salads. Maybe I'll have chicken in fajitas, or I might have chicken in a stir fry, or in just a general bowl food meal. A bowl food is a term that I love to use, which is basically all delicious things in a bowl that's for lunch or for dinner, and it's satisfying and it's yummy and you can eat it in a bowl. So you don't have to like sit there with a fork and knife, right? So always think, okay, with that batch cooking, maybe one big batch of protein. Another really easy way to batch protein is to do a slow cooker. And so that would be like a slow cooked pork butt or a beef shoulder. If you're going to do chicken, don't cook it for very long because it'll be very, very dry. Probably use thighs. So when we do batch cooking, what I'm going to do is create a bunch of ingredients. And so protein's my first ingredient for filling meals, but we're going to cook a bunch of ingredients that we can cook more meals with later. So it's not a thing of, okay, I'm going to individually package each one of these Tupperware meals because at least for me, I find that the meals get really old really fast. And you know what those little classic meal prep meals are? It's chicken, broccoli, and rice, right? Like those three things. Usually meal prep is three things: meat, veggie, carb. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just know that when I have that exact same meal over and over all week long, I get so sick of it and I don't want to eat it. And I'm way more likely to either get takeout or just eat some junk that's not that. Even though it's super healthy and it's perfect, I don't like it. Okay, so I like making fresh meals each day. However, I don't want to cook fresh food every day. Maybe a little bit of prep work here and there, maybe cooking a little bit here and there, but the majority of it is going to be from that batch cooking. So I like to start with that protein again. I get to do chicken, or I might do like a pulled pork, and I'll have that going while I do other batch cooked items. And my second favorite batch cooked item is roasted veggies. And if you've talked to me about food at all, you know that I love roasted vegetables. I can literally have them with every meal. Roasted cauliflower and roasted Brussels sprouts are my absolute favorites. How you do roasted vegetables is put it on chop it up, put it on a sheet pan, a little bit of olive oil. I use spray olive oil because I'm super lazy. Salt, and put it in the oven. So I usually put it at 220 degrees Celsius, probably like a 400 something degrees in Fahrenheit, and you're just going to roast it for about 20 minutes. I usually rotate it just to make sure because my oven has hot spots, but roast it until it's really brown and ugly and crispy and delicious. That you want that caramelized flavor. Like Gordon Ramsay says, no color, no flavor. So that's my philosophy with roasted vegetables. That's my philosophy with meat, no color, no flavor. So make sure you get some color on there. And that could be another really yummy component of your bowl. So I'm building a bowl food. I'm doing batch cooking. I might do chicken, roasted sweet potatoes, and roasted Brussels sprouts. And then maybe I might make a grain. I'm so okay with grains. I know some people think, oh, they're not clean eating or whatever. But do a brown rice. I do a quinoa. Some sort of grain. I usually throw some chicken stock in there, and then again, seasonings like a Tuscan seasoning or an Italian seasoning, and make it taste really good. So whenever I do a batch cooking session, I try to use everything in the kitchen that I can at one time. So if I'm making, say, a slow cooked pork, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start that first, right? I'm going to throw that in the slow cooker, maybe with some onions and some chicken stock and some seasoning. Then I'm going to use the oven, all right? So I have the slow cooker going. Now I want to use the oven. I'm going to do a couple batches of roast veggies. Say I'm going to have one pan that's roast cauliflower. Cauliflower is messy. It takes a whole bunch of space. Maybe another pan that's roasted carrots or roasted sweet potatoes, and those are both in the oven right at the same time. Then I'm going to use a stovetop, all right? So now maybe I might make a big pot of quinoa or brown rice, or I like to do a quinoa brown rice mix. Maybe we use the stove for, say, a soup. Do really simple soup with stock, with vegetables, You can drop an egg inside of that, swirl it around. You can do obviously chicken or meat in there, but maybe just make a really simple soup. Or we could do a puree type soup. So I'm going to try to use all the area that I can. Like the countertop, I'm chopping here. The oven is roasting vegetables. You know, slow cooker's got some slow cooked meat in it. And it's going to take a lot of kind of multitasking. But if we do this, we can get it done in about an hour. And when you're done, you're not going to portion it out into little meals. You're going to have ingredients for the rest of the week. So say I want to do fajitas. Maybe I might do a roasted chicken breast and a couple roasted onions and peppers or capsicum in the oven. And then later on in the week, I'm just going to throw that in a frying pan with some Mexican seasoning and warm up some tortillas and use a jar salsa, and boom, there we go. That's dinner. So what I mean by this is you will still do a little bit of cooking, because I don't know about you, but I like fresh food, but it will be much shorter because the ingredients are already there, ready to grab, easy. Okay. So how does this fit into fat loss, and how does this fit into macro tracking? Well, the first thing is when you're doing tracking, you know it has to be easy to measure, right? And so if we're doing bulk ingredients like chicken, like rice, like roasted vegetables, those are very, very easy to measure, to weigh, and to track into your tracker. So whenever we combine like a bowl, super easy. If you do not have a scale, a kitchen scale, first off, get a kitchen scale. It'll save your life. But put your bowl on the kitchen scale. You know, you're going to put like 100 grams of cooked rice. Then you're maybe going to put 100 grams of like cubed chicken that you batch cooked. Then microwave that, make it nice and warm. Then maybe you're going to add just like a handful of spinach. I never track spinach. Maybe you're going to cut up some carrots or something and add a dressing, and that's your meal, right? That's super duper easy to track. If you're doing fajitas, like I said earlier, you're going to measure how much chicken you put in there. Do just a tiny bit of oil. I always measure about a teaspoon of oil or a tablespoon of oil for a larger meal, depending. And I just track that to just kind of cover the amount of oil that's in that meal. And then I track it really, really easy. But what we do here is we know these individual ingredients and we've made them from scratch, so we know what's in them. It makes it so much easier to track. So when it comes to tracking for fat loss, I want you to understand that I start everyone with a fat loss goal with macro tracking. And it's not a forever goal. I don't want you macro tracking forever, and this is not a lifestyle that you need to maintain forever. The main thing with macro tracking is that it is a learning. It's a learning curve. So when you start macro counting, you're going to learn how much food is enough food, because many women are not eating enough food. How much protein is enough protein? I usually say for protein, whatever your body weight is in pounds, all right, that's like a high protein goal, or like your ideal body weight, or 0.8 times your body weight is going to be your protein. For if you're in kilograms, it's going to be like 1.7 times your body weight in protein. And that's like where we start. And this is like the hardest part for most women, is hitting that protein. And if you don't have easy to eat, easy to grab protein sources available, it's going to be very difficult. So that's where that batch cooking comes in. Make sure you have extra meats on hand. Boiled eggs, I would even peel them ahead of time. String cheese, Greek yogurt, if you do like dairy type stuff, cottage cheese is super high in protein. Having these things around will make it so much easier to hit your protein goal. And if you're really struggling to hit that protein goal, say that 1.7 times your body weight in kilos, if you're really struggling because that's quite high, the very base goal that I'll give you is 100 grams of protein, right? So I know you've probably heard me talk about 100 grams. That's our minimum goal. And then we're going to hit that 1.7 or up to 2 grams per kilogram. Okay, so that protein is going to be the hardest thing, and that's why I want you to prioritize it in your batch cooking. So with the whole macro tracking thing, I usually have my clients macro track for at least 3 to 6 months. That's a long time, but it's just a drop in the bucket in the course of your life. And when you learn about food and you learn about how your body responds to food, what works for you and what doesn't, then we can transition into more of an intuitive approach. And you know that I'm all about the ditch the diet, intuitive eating. However, intuitive eating is only like intuitive if you've done some work around food. If you know nothing about food, if you know nothing about calories and macronutrients, it's going to be very hard to intuitively eat, because that's like, oh, eat what you want. Well, I want pizza and donuts. So, right, that's not going to work very well. You have to have a little bit of a base knowledge. And that's where fitness professionals can really drive me crazy, who really bang on about the whole intuitive eating. If you're talking to somebody that knows nothing about food, then they don't know what intuitive eating means. You might know what intuitive eating means if you've dieted forever, you've tried all the different diets, you've done all the different macro splits, you figured out what food sensitivities you have and what works for you and what doesn't. Then you might slide into intuitive eating, and that's where I'm at. However, I don't expect you to be there right now. What I do expect you to do is learn what works for you, learn how to track food, see what a real, like a filling meal looks like, and what portion sizes actually look like. That's one of the big things about tracking, is you learn the portion sizes, right? When you go, oh my goodness, that's what a serving of cereal looks like, or that's what a serving of ice cream looks like. It's very eye-opening, and it'll kind of keep you in check. All right, so let me just check in here. Can't see any comments, so I'm just going to check on my phone real quick. All right. No comments, no questions so far. If you have them, please just stick them in the comments. And I'm going to wrap up here really soon. Okay, cool. So when it comes to batch cooking, honestly, it's putting together ingredients. It's what can I throw together that I can do different variations on, it'll taste yummy. Easy things, sausages, easy chicken breast, chicken thighs, slow cooked meats, lots of veggies. We could do roasted veggies, we could do steamed veggies. I love a big pan of sauteed veggies with garlic and butter. So it really just depends on how you like to eat. But don't think that you need to be following fancy recipes, because that's too much work. During the weekday, you don't want to pull a recipe out, right? Too much work. So instead, we just put together ingredients that taste good, always thinking some sort of protein, some sort of starchy carbs. Half of the plate or bowl is going to be vegetables, and then of course make it taste good. So add a sauce, or add some sort of condiment. So salsa, guacamole, nut butters, tahini, vinaigrettes, all these things make things taste good. And right, and they also give you that fat. We want like a 1 thumb size of fat. Okay, so that's either going to come from your cooking or from your sauces. Also, maybe add some crunch, add some nuts, add some seeds. These can be the basis of so many meals. So I hope you understand that, and I hope you give that a try. So when you go to the grocery store, instead of thinking, I need to get a recipe, what are we going to have this week? Maybe just get ingredients, get creative, figure out what tastes good. If you need examples of recipes, hit me up. I have so many batch cooking ideas. Oops, this came off. I have so many batch cooking ideas because I've been doing it for a while, and I would love to help you. Later today, I'm going to be making my egg frittata, which is one of my favorite batch cooked things, which is like basically veggies and meat and eggs baked in the oven. Slice it up, eat it later. So easy, so good for breakfast or lunch. So I think I might make a little video tutorial on how to do that. And so let me know if that sounds good, if you want a recipe for that. But if you have any questions about this whole food, meal prep, and like knowing what to actually eat, let me know. Send me a comment, send me a personal message. I know you guys said that you're really looking forward to more personal messages, so send me a message and I'd love to help you. Okay, that's all from me, guys. I hope you have a fabulous day, and I'll talk to you soon.